Greetings, greetings. Welcome, Rotarians and guests. You can join us. You know, before I just want to acknowledge a bit of sad news we received this week. We heard from his wife Nancy that John Hudson passed earlier this month, passed a couple of weeks ago. And I don't know if you knew John, but definitely thought he was a good guy. I remember a few years back when I was membership chair and he took over for me for a while. And he was so enthusiastic about this organization. And yeah, so no word on any memorial yet. If we get that information, we'll definitely pass that along. So maybe John and Nancy in your thoughts. So having shared that, Zoom etiquette, again, thanks for joining us, Zoomers. If you're not speaking, please mute yourself. If you are speaking, please unmute yourself. Here at the beautiful Robert Livermore Community Center, please turn your phones off when our speaker is presenting today. I appreciate that. And sorry, everybody. Alameda rules. If you forgot them today, certainly understand. Do whatever you got to eat. Certainly, you got to take off to eat. But we will try and honor house rules. So, okay. So, having said that, Alan Frank, would you be willing to lead us in the pledge today? All right. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Songsters, will you come up and sing a song for us?
I like this song.
Here we go.
You guys ready for a treat?
Where's the in honor of our guest today.
Yeah. This is Linda Tenney's
Suggestion.
the request. We take requests, by the way.
In honor of our guest today.
Oh, yeah.
This is
All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Like that. Okay, everybody. Our last night on shore, drink to the foam until we meet once more. Wishing you a happy voyage home. We learned that 5 minutes ago. There, I didn't steal it.
Thank you, Joe.
Good job.
Thank you. So Joel's an ex-Navy guy, and he wanted to point out that the Navy is the only branch that has drinking in their song. So good to know. Good to know. Yeah. Okay. Thought for the day. Carolyn, I see you're out there on Zoom.
I am on Zoom. And so my thought for the day comes actually compliments of TJ Gill Martin, who spoke at John Shirley's memorial service earlier this month. And one of the things that TJ focused on about John is what a wonderful job John did in listening and in asking questions and listening to people. And because he was such a good listener, he was able to expand his knowledge, hear others' perspectives, and learn more about individuals because he always asked people about themselves. And what I took away from TJ's talk was how much that resonated, how I found that to be so true about John. And I think we can all learn from that and from John's example. And remember that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a very good reason.
Nice. Thank you, Carolyn, for that reminder. So at this time, I want to thank the team of hardworking Rotarians that makes these meetings possible. Carolyn doing double duty today, not only dropping the thought of the day, but our Zoom host today. So thank you, Carolyn. Zoom chat monitor, David Rounds, he's in the house here at Robert Livermore. Thank you, David. Paul McCandless holding down audio visual duties today. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that Paul was light on his feet, able to shift us to the Cresta Blanca room today because President Ken forgot that's where we were going to be. So appreciate him being flexible and adapting there for that. So, and then Spur reporter duties, Joel Swanson recording the meeting. So thank you, Joel. Appreciate your service. Our Spur publisher today, Kathy Coyle. So Kathy, thank you very much. Always appreciate it. We've got a bunch of guests in the house today. Here, before we jump to that though, any visiting Rotarians? Carolyn, any visiting Rotarians out there on Zoom?
No, there are not any visiting Rotarians or any visitors on Zoom today.
Okay, so let's do visitors here in the house. So Linda, I see you get the mic first.
We're visitors.
Visitors.
Okay. So we have a very friendly, familiar face. Steve Shirley is here today.
Welcome, Steve.
And we have 2 guests that came with our speaker today. This is Willie's daughter, Gina. And this is their friend, Dana. I'm so sorry. Gina and Dana, sorry. And you'll meet Willie in a little while.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome.
And then I want to introduce my brother. Would you please stand up? Yes. Mom always liked me best, so. Anyway, this is Duke Dupel. He's my brother. He just moved back to California from Oregon.
All right.
And he's a Vietnam vet.
All right, welcome.
No, she's a
Welcome.
sorry.
Thank you, President Ken. First, let me introduce you someone who's been with us a few times before. That's Ronnie Forbes, who hopefully you guys will get to know him a little bit more. Sonia, you're going to talk to him. We're going to hear a lot more about him in the future, but he's doing a wonderful work for our community, for our homeless and our veterans and so, but we're going to have Ronnie say a lot more in the future, okay?
All right.
I want to hold.
Ronnie, welcome back.
And so Sandy Monroe, who, stand up please, is working with Ronnie. And I had a tour of the facility, which is the old College Avenue Fire Station, which again, you'll hear more about the food pantry work there. But I know her because of her sister, Denise Slavitt, who ran Checkers Catering for many years and was a wonderful community partner for all of Livermore. So thanks for coming.
All right.
I'll definitely concur on those two people. They are amazing. Thousands of pounds of food go to my organization every week. I think it's all Debbie. She is the director of operations. They are both off the rails and really meet the needs of the community. It's my privilege, though, to have Debbie stand on up. Debbie Burns. Here's the thing. How many of you loved your second grade teacher? My favorite.
Oh, yeah.
She currently is a second grade teacher. But here's the other things. She also has 4 kids, and they're amazing because they don't live with her anymore. Awesome. She also has a beautiful, awesome grandchild. And finally, she's also with Intero as a real estate agent. So welcome, Debbie.
All right, welcome. Thank you all for joining us today. Any guests we missed? I think that looks pretty good. That looks like us, right? Did I miss that? Were there any guests joining us on Zoom today?
Ken?
No, President Ken, no guests on Zoom today.
Carol's with me, but she's hiding.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so an invisible Carol with Ed.
Yes.
All right. Well, hi to Carol. Ed and Carol gave me a ride in the parade this last weekend, so I got to spend some time with them. Thank you again for that. Enjoyed that.
That was fun.
All right. So, announcements. Sonia, this club just keeps getting bigger.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, come on.
I'm coming up.
You're going up, I'm sorry.
That's true. We're looking for anybody under 60 to join our club, so. Anyway, we want to welcome today Trex Donovan. Here's your red badge and your rotary pin and your cap. And Trex is our newest member. We want to welcome him, have him help get involved. Trex is an Eagle Scout. He also is a Boy Scout troop leader and part of the roadie, what else?
I'm an
Arborist.
Should I say something?
Yes.
Or no?
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah, I'm a certified arborist and a risk assessment arborist, and I own Buena Vista Tree Service.
Right.
And I am very active with Troop 939, and I also sponsor the Livermore Rodeo.
Right.
And I've got a sawmill at home, and I do a lot of milling for Eagle Scout projects throughout the council, not just for our troop alone, but
And we're
I
going
mill
to tap
for
him
lots
in
of
for
projects.
other construction
Yeah,
projects.
yeah,
Anyway.
yeah. And I've done a lot of volunteering
Right.
over at Hageman Farm too.
Right,
so,
which
yeah.
is great. So we want to welcome Trex as our newest member. We feel very fortunate to have your enthusiasm and your expertise, and we encourage you to participate and have fun. We have a lot of fun in this club. So welcome.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you probably noticed another picture on there. Walt Thinfin is going to be a new member too. Walt wasn't able to join us today, but we'll catch Walt the next time he is able to join us. So we'll get him signed up too. So Paul.
Yes.
Did we have a parade?
We did. And many of the people in here helped in many different ways. Trex, before he became a member, was the parade starter right there. So just again, want to thank everyone for all their help with the parade. If you go to our website, you'll see Niall's video of the parade. So if you didn't happen to see the parade, you can go and view it on our website, or you can go to elivermore.com and you can see a picture of every entry that was in the parade. And Sheila, were you named the cowgirl of the universe or something?
Yeah, cowgirl of the universe.
Actually, you know what? I was very honored. Our Rodeo Foundation, every year they honor a cowgirl that gives back to the community and is very involved. And I won that honor this year. Yeah. So if you're on Channel 2, you see my face of, because we had Roberta Gonzalez there, I paraded her in on a horse, and she did the weather, and they televised me as I'm standing there, bowing my head, saying, "Yeah, God, I wonder who that lady is," and it was me. Didn't have the best facial expression when they said my name. Anyway, I was very honored.
Nice, nice. Congratulations. Kathleen was telling me how hard it was to keep a secret from you, and she felt awesome that they were able to surprise you with that. So that's very cool. Well deserved. So next up, I think, do I remember right? Is that Norm? Norm has some good news to share with the club. Where's Norm? There he is. What do you got, Norm? All right.
I think that's good news. And as good, if not better news, we're going to incorporate a facility in which produce, we only get one bill rather than multiple invoices and have to send in however you do it, like Square or Zelle or whatever, multiple times. So I hope you all find that it's very encouraging. However, if you don't, I'm really open to call when I'm here. If you could call me, or you can text me, or you can email me if you have some suggestions. If you don't like the idea or a better idea, because this is one club. And this is meant to do only good. So I'm opening out there. I do want to share with you, although it did get explained to attention, we know that clubs that are bigger than this. Oh, I've been speaking without it. My voice is pretty powerful after all those years, but I know, Zoom. Yeah, I guess they can hear me now.
Aim the mic at your mouth.
Oh, now it needs to be, now it needs closer.
Much better.
That does it?
There you go.
I'm learning. What can I say? That when we looked, and I tried to get information from the district about what dues are, and she could only give me at this point 2 points as two reference points. One club that's larger than us charges dues of $500, not including the facility. And there's a club that is tiny compared to us that charges $400. So I just want to put what a great bargain we are. Thank you.
What a value proposition. Nice. So, Carolyn, I feel bad shilling for this myself. That just seems wrong, right?
That is quite all right, but we want to have an opportunity to thank and maybe slightly roast and joke around with President Ken. And recall that our last Wednesday in June, June 29th, we will not be meeting at noon, but instead we'll be meeting at Alden Lane Nursery. Thanks to Jackie Williams Cartwright, who is offering that venue to host us at her beautiful nursery again. And that will be our annual demotion party, 5:30 p.m. You need to purchase your tickets in advance so we know how much food to buy and how many people to prepare for. And you have one more week to purchase your tickets. So you can look in your email box for the link to purchase them online, or if you're in person at the meeting today, you can purchase tickets through Norm or Sheila, or you can send your checks into the PO box. So we hope to see everybody there, and this is open to all club members and one guest. And the deadline to purchasing your tickets again is what? June 22nd, 1 week from today. Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you there.
Thank you, Carolyn. So President Ken was cleaning out closets this last weekend. I know, exciting. And found, I don't know if you remember, but District Governor Richard Flanders stopped by our club. Wow, it seems like months ago. And he dropped off a autographed basketball, a basketball autographed by Vlade Divac. You may remember Vlade when the LA Lakers were dominant there before the current Warriors era completely eliminated that. And Vlade Divac, general manager of the Sacramento Kings. Anyway, District Governor Flanders dropped this off with the idea that we might be able to raffle this off and raise a little bit of money for the Rotarian Foundation. So I don't know if any of you guys are sports fans or Vlade Divac fans. Little fun fact, Vlade Divac, the first international player to log 1,000 games in the NBA. He kind of, paved the way for the NBA to bring in talent from around the world. I got a basketball. And this basketball could be yours in exchange for your contribution to the Rotarian Foundation. Do I have any takers at $25,000? I was gonna say, I'm sorry, Mike, you're such an enthusiastic supporter. I was gonna say 25 bucks. I got a bid for 100. I got a bid for 100. What, Anita says 150? What, oh. Okay, 100 bucks. Anybody? Anybody? All right. Thank you, Mike. You want a bag to take that home? All right. Excellent. 100 bucks for the foundation. I think that was it. I think that was everything I had. Wow, you're not going to want to miss this next week, right? President Ken's last meeting. Get this guy out of here, right? Get him out. Yeah. No, really, I think this will be fun. I think this will be fun. Look forward to seeing everybody next week. So at this time, the reason we're really here, we're super excited to hear this story today from our presenter. And to tee this up, I'm going to have Linda Tinney come up and introduce our speaker today. Linda.
Hello, am I at an okay volume for you, or is it too loud or too soft? It's okay, thank you. Sorry, I have some notes. So a few years ago, John Shirley introduced me to our guest speaker, Willie Sharp. Willie was a U.S. Navy fighter pilot from 1963 until 1968. After completing his 5-year military commitment, he returned to civilian life, flying for United Airlines until he retired in 2000. There are some famous quotes about flying and pilots, such as, "There are old pilots and there are bold pilots, but there are no old, bold pilots." Our guest today, though, defies that saying. And military flying, they've defined as hours and hours of boredom interrupted by moments of stark terror. Willie might attest to that adage. If you'd like to learn more about Willie after hearing him speak today, there's a book that I highly recommend entitled Unforgotten in the Gulf of Tonkin, a story of the U.S. military's commitment to leave no one behind. You can get it on Amazon. I recommend it highly. It's a very interesting read, and it's a privilege and an honor to introduce Willie Sharp.
Done this before.
I can do that.
Catch me.
That's a deal.
That's a deal. Quitter. No, I'm fine. See, seriously, yeah. Hi, everybody. The Veterans Administration just provided me with a brand new knee for my prosthesis. It has a microprocessor It uses a fluid called magnetorheological fluid, and it has the capability of denying my ability to bend the knee and then allowing me to bend the knee. So I'm still getting used to that. It's remarkable. I plug it in at night to charge its little battery. So, yeah. So anyway, I'm becoming friends with it. Thank you for inviting me here. Sir. Oh, sorry. Is this better? Okay, sorry. Thanks for inviting me here today. This is especially to Linda Tenney. I've known her quite a long time, and I knew John Shirley, of course, before he passed. Wonderful man. Steve is here, and I'm proud to see him again. I was finishing up my college education, and I'd already met the lady that I wanted to spend my life with there, and they had already started drafting lots of my friends, and so I had two uncles who were in the Second World War, and they were kind of my heroes. So I went to the Navy. They were both Navy personnel, and went to the recruiter. This was in Fresno. Went to the recruiter there, excuse me, and he told me about a program that involved aviation. And I said, I don't know how to fly. And he said, we teach you how to fly. Why don't you, if you're interested, why don't you make your application to naval aviation? So that's what I did, and the rest became history. We got married, my wife and I. That's the other advantage, was I could be married during the training. Started out in Pensacola, Florida. That's where we learned to be military people. We had Marine drill sergeants for our instructors there, so you can bet that we had to perform well for those guys. Finally, at the end of that was called pre-flight. At the end of that, I got my commission as an ensign in the Navy, and I started my flight training. That was in Pensacola, Florida, at a place called Softly Field, and we were flying the T-34 Mentor. It's like a Beechcraft Bonanza, but with conventional tail and 4.5 seating. That's where we learned how to take off and land, of course, and then ultimately we did aerobatics with that as well, doing loops and spins and various maneuvers. Once we're finished with that, we went to, we came to a fork in the road. Some guys had to go to propeller airplanes, others to jets. You had your choice, and if your grades were sufficient, you got what you wanted. I wanted jets, and so I got to go to Meridian, Mississippi. And there I was flying the T-2 Buckeye. It's a single-engine jet airplane. Again, tricycle landing gear, straight wing. And we did the same thing that we'd done in Saltley Field. Plus, we started practicing landings for the carrier. We did something like that every day. We'd go practice landing on the ship. They had a runway marked just like it is on a ship, the same vertical guidance that we have, and the same line of information to do. From there, when we finished that syllabus, we went back down to back down to Pensacola, and all we did were practice carrier landings. And the guy would go out, he would stand and watch you land, and then at the end of that, we'd do maybe 10 a day. At the end of that, then we'd be graded on it and critiqued. I enjoyed flying, I really, really, really did, and knowing I was going to be a Navy pilot, I knew I was going to have to land on a ship, so I paid especially good attention during this period. When we completed that, we went out and landed for the first time in the Gulf of Mexico on the USS Lexington. It's an aircraft carrier from the Second World War vintage, very small ship. The instructor pilot took 6 of us out. He went and landed on the ship, went back to the back of the ship where he could communicate with us. And then he called us down. First 2 landings, we didn't have our tail hook down, just so we could touch down on the ship add power, take off and go around and do it again. After that, if he liked what he had seen, he would tell you to drop your hook, and the next one is going to be your first arrested carrier landing. So I did my 2. He said I could come back, so I dropped my hook and went around, and I did a really, really good landing on my first. So I was ready to quit right there. Unfortunately, we had to do 6 of those, but I did them all. A really good pass, we call it an okay. A fair pass is one where he has to do something to correct you. He has to give you a command to correct what you're doing. Like, don't go high, don't go low, more power, things like that. Watch your lineup. So I did my 6 landings, and I was ready then to move on to advanced training. Advanced training for jets was in 2 different fields in Texas. Chase Field was one, and NAS Kingsville, Texas was the other, right down by the Mexican border. I went to Kingsville, Texas. I flew the F-9 Cougar and the F-11 Tiger there. And we did air-to-air combat, air-to-ground, dropping bombs, shooting rockets, formation flying, and of course, more carrier landing practice. Depending on your grades, when you finished, you could have your choice of which coast you wanted to go to. Navy was kind of divided into 2 different groups, Atlantic and Pacific, and all my family was in Pacific, so I wanted to come out west. So my grades were sufficient that I could, and you also get to choose the airplane that you want to fly when you're in the fleet, as they call it. I had already fallen in love with the airplane that I requested, called the F-8 Crusader. It's a single-engine airplane, supersonic, almost twice the speed of sound. Mach is the speed of sound, and I could go 1.8 Mach, very fast. Only one pilot, I said, and so I went out to San Diego to Naval Air Station Miramar there, and that's where I got to fly the Crusader for the first time. And it was everything I dreamed it would be, and then some more. It was just a remarkable airplane. At the completion of that, then I joined my squadron. I was in VF 191. The V is for heavier than air. The Navy still differentiates between balloon flight and powered heavy airplane flight. So some traditions don't die, apparently. Anyway, and then F is for fighters. I was a fighter. And then 191 was the name of my squadron. We were called Satan's Kittens. It came from the Second World War, and the logo for our squadron was designed by Walt Disney. And it was a cat standing on a pitchfork throwing lightning bolts. So then they became Satan's Kittens instead of Hell's Cats. So that's the squadron I was in. At the completion of my, they call it transition training, where you learn to fly that airplane, Vietnam was getting hot and heavy, and it was going to be time for us to go. My wife was pregnant at the time, and they induced labor so I could see the baby before I get teary, so I could see her. Anyway, we went over to Vietnam and stepped right into the middle of that awful hornet's nest. We were doing flights only in North Vietnam. We didn't fly anywhere south. And we were bombing bridges, anti-aircraft sites, surface-to-air missile sites, any other military installation, a lot of roadways. And we had 3 ships at the same time operating. I shouldn't say at the same time, at the same location. One ship would operate from midnight to noon, one from noon to midnight, and one from 8 in the morning until 8 at night. So there are always 2 air groups operating at the same time. After a month, those would all shift, so you didn't have to fly all of your flights at night or early morning or late night. We would escort our little A4 Skyhawks. They're the ones who carried the bombs and rockets. And our targets, like I said, were mostly those of non-military as such. We were there when the first surface-to-air missile was fired. And so within a week, guys from Massachusetts Institute of Technology came out and told us everything you could know about a surface-to-air missile. They installed even receptors on our instrument panel. It was just a little round light, and then there was a tone we would hear. The missile was on a rail. They have to warm up just a little bit, and during that transmission, we would have a solid amber light. And then once the missile was shot, that light would start flashing, and it would go diddle 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 diddle. And when it was just waiting, they were just warming up, it would go do dee do dee. So we called one the high diddle diddle and the low diddle diddle. Low diddle diddle was you start turning and look to see if you can see the missile, and then diddle 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 means it's in flight. And then you really start maneuvering so it can't follow. It could go really fast, but it couldn't turn and follow you, it would overshoot. So we got shot at a lot with that. That was a primary target for us. We could carry a rocket called a Zuni. It's a 5-inch diameter rocket and very accurate. We could carry 14 on my airplane. And we could shoot at the site where the surface-to-air missiles were being fired from, excuse me. And those rockets would go off 1,000 feet above the ground so they could shoot shrapnel and take out personnel and even any kind of equipment there. I enjoyed that because I knew I was accomplishing something. Our at sea periods were usually 30 to 45 days. I wound up doing 331 carrier landings, 277 combat missions, and I only got shot down once. So I've got a leg up. I'll tell you about what happened to me. I was escorting 6 of the little A4 bombers, and we were going after a bridge, and the commander of the air group was the leader of the thing, and he briefed how we were going to handle the mission. There would be 6 of those, and then 2 of us guys flying Crusaders, and they were going to have the little bombers break into sections of 3, and then the other Crusader and I would be separate to roam and shoot at any aircraft sites or whatever that popped up. So as we approached the target, I split off from my lead, and the A4 split up into their groups of 3. They're carrying a bomb called a Snake Eye, and it had folding fins, and fins are held against the body of the bomb with a stainless steel strap, so they could go in really low. When the bomb dropped, the strap would break, and then those fins would pop out and stop the bomb virtually, and it goes straight down and explodes. So they could go in low altitude and have a very accurate result to their bombs. So we were briefed we were going to go on opposite sides, the other Crusader and I, opposite sides of the target. And we would attack anybody that started shooting at our bombers. So I went further on to the west side of the target. My lead turned it hard back around, then we were sort of on opposite sides, waiting to have something to shoot at. The first group of 3 dropped their bombs very accurately. They split off, and then the place lit up with anti-aircraft, anti-aircraft fire. When they did that, my lead said, take the ones on the east side. So I went around, turned down, got my really good aim point, got a really good shot off, and I was just pulling off. We also had a rule, don't hit the same target twice, because now they can see you leave and they're ready for you when you turn and come back. So that was a hard and fast rule. So I shot my 6 of my rockets. As I was pulling off, I looked down and I saw them pulling a tarp that was covering an 85 millimeter anti-aircraft gun. Those things can reach to 65,000 feet. They have a really big warhead, so they're very, very effective anti-aircraft guns. I called my lead and I said, they got an 85 here. He said, can you hit it? And I said, yes, I can. So he said, all right, take it. So I went back up, turned, put my nose down, had a really good run going, and shit, pardon it. I felt like running over a speed bump in a parking lot that you don't know is there, kind of a boom, boom, like that, and then I could feel a dull shudder in the airframe of the airplane. God damn, I've been hit. I called my lead, I said, I've been hit back here. He said, how bad is it? I said, I don't know, but I think it's serious. So I went ahead and shot everything I had left. I hit the target and pulled back up. I climbed up to, I got hit 2 more times. In the side of the cockpit, I received a puncture wound in my right calf and a bone scrape in my left shin. Airplane was running beautifully, so he said, I'll come take a look at it. I could see him turning and coming back, and he said, holy shit, you're on fire. You better get out of that thing. Break it to me easy, right? I said, well, I don't want to go right here. I'd like to get as far as I can. He said, okay, if it gets any worse, I'll have to tell you to eject. So I got up to 11,000 feet, about 450 knots. That's almost 500 miles an hour. Leveled off there, and I was trying to assess what I did have left and what I didn't. I knew I was going to have to eject if I was on fire. So I bottomed out my seat, ran my rudder pedals forward, tightened up my harness, put my visor down. I had a scope cover on the radar. I took that and put it behind, and I was ready to eject. I was just flying along with one hand on the ejection curtain and one on the throttle and microphone button. To eject, the seat's made by Martin Baker Company. It's a British company. They've never had a failure. Remarkable. Anyway, to initiate the ejection, there are 2 loops above your head that are connected to a face curtain that you pull over your face to protect you from the wind blast, and then that releases the canopy and fires the seat. If the canopy doesn't go, you're going right through the canopy anyway, one way or the other. So I was ready. And I knew I was going to have to eject, so I just leveled off and was going as fast as I could. The loss of the hydraulic system that allowed the main wheels, which are held up into the fuselage, to relax, and when they did, both of those came out and extended into the airstream. The right one separated from the airplane, the left one was still hanging down, but I wasn't going to be landing anyway, so I didn't really particularly care. But twice while we were flying out, the guy said, the flames are getting worse, you better think about getting out of there. And I came back and I said, right now it's flying well, I want to go as far as I can. We'd come in over a low cloud layer, excuse me, and I couldn't determine where the coastline was. If you went ankle deep in the Gulf, you had a really good chance of being rescued. If you didn't make it to the water, you're just about guaranteed you're going to Hanoi. So that was my main goal, was to make it to the water. And with the cloud layer below me, I couldn't tell where I was. So they were flying along behind me, Navy pilots or something else anyway. Here I am. Once the parachute opens, the only thing you have left is a seat pan that you are sitting on, and inside that are all your survival gear, including a little raft that's about this long and about that wide. But you can sit in it or hang on to the side, which is what I did. But Navy pilots are flying by now, rocking their wings, giving me the finger. You know, I'm holding my raft under my left arm, and so I'm trying to, and I was frustrated because I wasn't sure they could see the goddamn thing, you know? I could see theirs, but I wasn't sure they could see mine. Anyway, but it was comforting to know that they were with me. So anyway, they kept offering suggestions which weren't capable of, and finally the guy says, "It's going to blow. Go now, go. Don't wait." So I just let go and pulled the curtain over, and boom, the thing fired. And during this transition period, the loss of that hydraulic system had allowed the up latches for the main wheels to relax. And one of them extended out into the airstream, and the right one did, but it broke off. So I was just flying with one wheel down on the left side of the plane, and unfortunately it was flying what we called a crab or a skid. Instead of going straight into the wind, that extra drag on the left side had me going kind of sideways. And when I ejected, I encountered the wind instead of face on. It came from the right side and caught my left arm and blew it back so violently I thought I'd lost it. I was elated when I looked down after the parachute opened to see my arm was still attached. I could barely close my fingers together, but at least I had the parts. I opened up the pack and I was able to hook that onto my harness and then let everything fall away. Went down into the clouds, and then when I came out the bottom, I could see I was only like 600 feet above the water, the bases of the clouds. Landed in the water, and there are a whole bunch of North Vietnamese fishing boats north of me, probably at least 15. Then they're waiting for guys like me to fall into the water. So when I got in the water, instead of trying to get into the raft, I just pulled it over and hooked my right arm over it. Kept my head down. I topped the swells and I could see those boats, but then I go in the trough and I couldn't. So I thought maybe they hadn't seen me. But in about 2 minutes, let's see, one is already turned, coming toward me. You know where I can go to hide? So it got close. He turned probably 25 yards away. He turned his starboard side to me, right side. And two guys on board that I could see. One had an AK-47, and he shot 3 bursts near me on my right side. And he's yelling and pointing at the net they have thrown over the side of the boat. So I knew nowhere to go but over there. I pushed over to it, and inside that seat pan, the first thing you do is there's a yellow lanyard you attach that to your harness, and then all your survival gear is attached to that one lanyard. I didn't detach that when I started up the steps or up the net. I had trouble. My boot kept getting caught in the net. I couldn't use my left arm, and he was getting more and more impatient. I got my upper body over the rail finally. He swung and hit me with a rifle butt, broke my nose and knocked a tooth in. I rolled onto the deck then and stood up, and I lifted my left arm over my head to surrender. The other guy that was on there came and took the .38 caliber revolver that the Navy issues us. And he went over and just crouched down. So now I'm facing the guy with the AK-47. I think he was intimidated. I was much taller than him. I had all of this flight gear on and the emergency beacon going on my left shoulder. And I think he was intimidated, and I don't think he quite knew what the next step was. I think I was his first capture, and he was as unfamiliar with it as I was. Having talked to rescue units all the way out until I ejected, they knew my path over the water. They had dropped down beneath the clouds then and finally saw where I was. Over his left shoulder, I could see one of our A-1 Sky Raiders. It's propeller airplane from the Korean War. He had dropped down and he was coming directly toward us, really, really low, really, really fast. His propeller was almost hitting the wave tops. The guy holding the AK-47 on me had no idea he was coming until there he arrives. When he went over, you could feel the prop wash and smell the exhaust. And the guy was just panicked. He just collapsed down into a ball on the deck like he thought something was going to blow. I'll divert just for a minute. Before we left on this deployment, the wives and girlfriends of the pilots had a meeting with our executive officer, and including any kind of thing doing with administrative possibilities. While we were gone, they would have to be running the family. And then he said, at the end of that presentation, he said, the Navy issues a .38 caliber revolver. Said, it's not a very good survival weapon. We use it more for signaling. We can carry tracer ammunition in it. You can see it at night for miles. So he said, we recommend that you buy a small caliber automatic weapon that you can conceal in your flight gear. So on the way home, my wife stopped and bought me a pistol. She got a 22 Ruger 9-shot automatic, and I carried it in a zipper, diagonal zipper pocket in my flight suit right there where I could reach it with my right hand. So when the airplane flew over, the guy collapsed down to the deck. I decided I would try to get that pistol out and try to escape. So I unzipped, it came out, and the handle was right there, it came out as easily as anything. But you have to cock it with pull the receiver back with the left hand, and then it's ready to fire. So I wasn't sure I had enough grip because my left shoulder hurt so much. We have leg restraint straps that we wore around our legs to pull our legs in during the ejection so they don't flail at high speed. And that's a thick, triple thick canvas belt around there. So I thought if I used the side of that, I'd be able to get it cocked, and sure enough, I was able to. I just finished that, and he looked up and saw me, and now he sees me holding a pistol, and the other guy had already taken my .38 and moved over to the center of the boat. So he couldn't believe, he looked at the guy with had my .38 and looked back at me holding this pistol. And then I guess he thought it didn't matter. He started to turn the AK-47 toward me, and I shot him. This is hard. I hit him just above his right eye. His head started back, and I hit him just below the right eye. Then he rocked back forward, and I hit him one more time in top of the head. And he fell forward, and his chin hit the deck, and something slid over, hit me in the toe of my right boot, and it was part of his jawbone with 2 teeth attached. I said, "I'm sorry," out loud. But, of course, he couldn't hear me. So the guy who had taken my .38 revolver saw me shoot his friend. He raised the pistol up and pulled the trigger, and it didn't fire. The reason it didn't was about 6 months before, some guys in our sister squadron were having a quick draw contest with the .38 revolver, and one of them accidentally fired off a round in the ready room. We're talking about steel decks, steel bulkhead, steel overhead. that thing ricocheted probably for about 4 minutes before it embedded harmlessly in the seat back, but it became air group policy to only carry 4 rounds in that revolver. So the one under the hammer is empty, and then the first chamber after that is empty. So if you drop it on the hammer, it won't fire. And the first time you pull the trigger, it won't fire. It rotates to an empty chamber. That's the condition my .38 was in. So when I shot his friend, he raised the pistol, pulled the trigger, and of course it didn't fire. So he dropped it and turned and jumped in the water on the other side of the boat. So I put my pistol on safety and put it back in. I still had my raft attached to me, hanging off the side of this boat. In the meantime, an HU-16 Albatross, an amphibious airplane from Air Force, had flown up from Da Nang, and he dropped a smoke light in the water. So once I got in the water, I was able to push my raft over to that smoke light, and I just waited to be picked up. And pretty soon I saw a helicopter coming. And as he approached, he says, "Clear your raft, swim clear of your raft. If you don't do that, their prop wash will carry whatever you're hanging on to and keep it, pushing it ahead of it." So I finally unhooked my raft, and they stopped and put a horse collar down for me to get into. It's kind of hard because you're supposed to look at the cable and have it go under your arms across your back and back up. Well, I couldn't, my left arm, I couldn't really do what I needed to with it. I was going to try to go up and get the thing and swing it around then, so it would be behind me. And I got my arm in, and he just started it up. So I said, "That's fine." It didn't matter to me. I was going up. I just locked my arm, and he lifted me up by the one arm. I got up on board. He pulled me in, and I was so goddamn happy, I tell you. I just started to get up, and the guy said, "Just lie down, lie down." And he says, "Are you hurt?" And of course I said, "Hell no." Happiest day of my life. So he took me back to the USS Gridley. It's a light cruiser, dropped me off. Then they went to get a doctor that was on a different ship. In the meantime, they took me down to the sick bay on that ship, on the Gridley, and took all my clothes off. They x-rayed my arm, shoulder, dressed the wounds on my legs. By now, the doctor had come back, so he took another x-ray, and he said, "Nothing broken. Just got all kinds of soft tissue damage in the left shoulder." So I was elated, of course. So one of the crewmen said, "Captain Sackett would like you to come up to his stateroom if you would, if you feel like it." So I said, "Hell yeah." So he took me up to the captain's stateroom. The door was closed. He reached over, and we hear, "Enter." So he reaches across and undoes the door and pushes it in, and here's the captain standing by his desk, a bottle of scotch and a bottle of bourbon there. He says, "Scotch or bourbon?" I said, "Captain, I'm a naval aviator. I say yes and yes." So he said, "God damn it, get in here." So he wanted me then, of course, to tell him the whole story of what had happened, which I did. That was about noon on a Wednesday. I stayed on board that night. They made me an honorary crew member of the Gridley. So proud of that. I have that at home. And then the next day, I stayed on all the rest of the next day. Then at about 10 o'clock at night, they went alongside an oiler, a refueling ship. And during the refueling process, they highlined me over to that oiler. And I stayed on that from midnight until noon the next day. And then I got highlined from the Netchies over to the USS Hornet, which is now a museum in Alameda. And they were at the time an anti-submarine carrier, so they had long-range helicopters on board. So I had lunch on there, and then one of their helicopters flew me back to my ship, the Bonhomme Richard. And I went back into sick bay, and they redressed the wounds and re-x-rayed, and they agreed with the previous determination, nothing broken there. Because we were operating in a very salty atmosphere, the airplanes can corrode a lot if they get any kind of rust going. So we were in the habit of leaving one airplane at Subic Bay in the Philippines to get fresh water washed down. Fresh water was a very valuable and scarce commodity because we're out in the ocean. And we have to produce it for drinking water and to use in the boilers to make steam to drive the turbines to make the ship go. So we'd like to have an airplane there getting corrosion controlled. I asked if they had one, and they said they did. And then I asked my flight surgeon, I said, can you clear me to go fly that airplane back? He said, oh, well, you sure you can do it? I said, hell yeah, I can do it. So he said, yeah, okay. So the next day then, I rode in a transport plane from the Bonhomme Richard into the Subic Bay in the Philippines. I got there late afternoon, just about a half hour before happy hour. I checked into the BOQ, and then I wandered down to the O Club, Officers Club. And the bartender was just getting set up. He said, I'll be right with you. I said, okay. So I just sat down at the bar. And he said, all right, what can I have for you? What do you think? I said, I had a $5 bill, and drinks are 10 cents each in the happy hour. I put a $5 bill. I said, I want 50 stingers. He said, what? I said, I want 50 stingers. He said, dear God, I'll bring you two at a time. I said, I didn't get through $1 worth. I got so goddamn drunk. So I spent the night there in the BOQ, and then the next day I went out, pre-flighted the airplane and took off, filed a flight plan, and headed back for the ship. Weather was beautiful all the way. I was up at 35,000 feet, see forever. And they wanted me to call periodically every 10 miles. So I finally called him and let down to 20,000 feet. And he said, right now you got a green light, bring it on in as soon as you get here. So then I'm thinking, I've been on kind of an unusual experience here. I want to celebrate some way. And usually guys that, we call it flat hat, guys that flat hat, they come by the ship really, really fast and really slow. And then we go into what we call the brake, where you pull the power back, put speed brakes out, pull real hard G's around, dissipate your speed, get your gear down, hook down, then turn around, then come down and land on the ship. So that pass by the ship at high speed is the first time you're really in the traffic pattern as such. And so I'm thinking, well, I'll come in really low and really fast. And I thought, shit, other guys had done that. So I decided, how about if I come in inverted? So I wasn't completely stupid. I practiced it at altitude. I rolled in a bunch of nose down trim, so when I'm inverted, if I let go of the stick, it will make me go up instead of down. And I was able to do that, and then we have a vertical speed indicator, so I could see if I was being able to maintain level flight inverted, and I was. So they said call him at 5 miles, which I did. They said, you got a green light, bring it on in. So I went on right down to the deck, and I rolled it inverted and rolled it trim like I wanted to. I can look ahead and see the ship coming. Then it's going by. Now I'm thinking, which way do I turn this thing to go in the right direction? So I finally did the right thing. I gave it right wing down, which raised it up like this. So did all of that, got it, all my landing gear down. We raised our wing for takeoff and landing also. And so I made a nice landing. Then you have to taxi forward and parallel park way up in the front of the ship, which I did. Climbed out, and I was walking back toward the island where the air boss is. He's like the traffic controller on the ship. He says, "Sharp." I give him a wave. He says, "What the fuck was that?" So, of course, completely in denial, I said, "What?" So I made it back in, got my ass chewed, but that was okay. I did it. Legendary now. So, you'd think I'd go home from that, but I didn't. I stayed there. Like I said, I had 331 carrier landings, over 200 combat missions. None as exciting as that. I got hit another time. I shot at a surface-to-air missile site, and sometimes they had like 3 of those sites in various places shooting missiles. So I went down and shot at my target. I got a good hit on that. As I was pulling up and climbing out, I saw something like fuzzy up in front of me, and then I realized it wasn't fuzz, but it was the shaft of one of those surface-to-air missiles was spinning end over end, just like you throw a pencil. And shit, it was coming directly at me, so I just had to pull my wing over fast, and it went right past. Didn't hit me at all, but it really scared me. Yeah, it was a remarkable time. Landing on a small ship like that is probably the most difficult thing I've ever done, and I'm proud that I was able to do that. Everybody that flew on the larger ships always had to give deference to us, even at the bars, because we were flying on the most difficult ships to operate to and from. The Hornet is over in Alameda, if you ever want to go see how one looks or how we lived on there, please do. I volunteer there very often as a docent, and it's enlightening to a lot of people that we actually live there. A lady was talking to me one time and said, well, this is kind of nice. We're on the hangar deck. We have 4 or 5 airplanes down there. This is really nice. And I said, well, you should see it when it was operating. I said, we had 2 fighter squadrons that had 16 airplanes each. That's 32. 2 attack squadrons that had 18 airplanes each. That's 36 more. So that's 8. And then we had one A1 Sky Raider squadron with 14 airplanes. We had 2 A3 Sky Warriors. It's a twin engine refueling refueling airplane. And then we had 2 Plane Guard helicopters. So we had over 100 airplanes on that ship. We had to do what we call cyclic operations. We'd start our 12-hour period I told you about earlier, 8 in the morning to 8 at night, or 8 at night to 8 in the morning, and noon to midnight, midnight to noon. And we would start off with the original bomb group that's going to operate on the first mission of that day on the back of the ship. They got all their fuel on board, got all their bombs and rockets, ammunition. Pilots go out, pre-flight the airplanes, climb in, buckle up, then it's time to launch. They tell us start your engines, and then they start taking us forward. We only have 2 catapults, so you got left, right, until all of those airplanes are airborne. Then they bring up the other half from the hangar bay, same number of airplanes, fill them with fuel, bombs and rockets and ammunition. Pilots man up, start them up, taxi forward, left, right, until they're airborne. And usually the last guy airborne, the original guy, is coming back. The first pilot is coming back to land. So when you land, you taxi forward, shut the engines down, park parallel, nose in, until everybody's recovered. Then you have to move all those airplanes to the back of the ship, refuel them, put on bombs and rockets and ammunition. Pilots man them, start them up, taxi forward, off they go. And then usually that last one off, then here comes the first guy back from the second group for 12 hours, rain or shine. It's a madhouse. I can't tell you how lucky we were that we didn't lose more people than we did. You're completely deflated when you finally finish that day. I was lucky to have 2 really excellent roommates. We were in a 4-man room with only 3 of us in there in a little air-conditioned pocket forward on the 3rd deck down below the hangar deck. And since we had an extra bunk bed and we had an extra locker, we decided before we left San Diego. We were going to beautify the thing a little bit. So we went and we took measurements for the vacant tall locker, and we had a guy build us a wooden shelf unit to go into that locker. And we stocked it with supplies, liquor, and mixer. And we had a big reel-to-reel tape recorder. And so we stocked that locker with our liquor, and we put our tape recorder up, and so we could listen to music and have some drinks, relax. And this one time, our XO, or executive officer, had been shot down and killed. So they sent us a new one after 2 weeks. The new guy came from the East Coast. He was introduced to the squadron, and his name was Dean Aldern. And he said, well, guys, I'm really happy to be with this group. You know, heard good things about you. I'm the new guy here now, so you're going to have to help me adapt and so forth. We're thinking, he's a nice guy. He says, but I have to say, I'm a Navy man. He said, I've heard there's drinking going on the ship. And he said, I go by Navy regulations, and so I don't want to see any evidence of anybody being intoxicated. So now we're thinking, Jesus, hard ass. Anyway, we broke up the party, and I don't know, 2 or 3 days later, one of my roommates is flying, and the other one, a guy named Lee Van Boven, and I were down there. We'd both been on the same mission, hotter than hell. We're down in that nice, cool room. We were in a general space and our occupied area just had a curtain that separated it from that general space. We had our reel-to-reel tape recorder going, playing, who in the hell was it? Roy Orbison. And I was leaning back, I was having a martini straight up. My roommate had scotch, listening to the music, and relaxing, you know, cooling off. Right by me is where the curtain was, the entrance into our space, and there's a knock, a big loud knock. All of a sudden, shit, I rocked forward and put my drink down opened the curtain, and it was the executive officer. Holy crap, we're busted, I'm thinking. My roommate put his scotch into the chest of drawers and closed the lid on that. And I said, here, XO, come on in. Here, have a seat, you know. We're just kind of relaxing here. We both just got through flying, blah, blah, blah. They said, well, you guys got this fixed up real nice. It's nice, you had your music there and everything. Yeah, that's good. Well, I got 2 daughters, and I went to Oxford, or where in the hell he's, you know, we're doing a little get acquainted conversation. And it's going well. And, you know, my drink's getting cold, or my drink's getting hot, and my roommate's is getting cold. And I'm thinking, when's he going to get up and get out of here? So finally, he says, well, you know, at the meeting the other day when I was introduced, I said, you know, I'm a Navy man, I go by Navy regulations. And he said, I'm not going to beat around the bush, as if he hadn't already. Said, I've heard you guys have alcohol down here. So I said, XO, I'm not gonna lie to you. We do have. I said, but I hope we don't appear to be intoxicated or anything. No, I wasn't saying that, just finding out if you had some or not. And I said, well, yeah, we do. So he said, what do you have? Yeah, so I got up and I walked over to that locker you raise a little handle and it opens up like double doors. And here it is, like a goddamn liquor case in a liquor store. He said, holy shit. He said, is that Glenfiddich? I said, yes, it is. Would you like a little nip of that? He said, you know what? I think I would. So I got a glass and poured about that much in the bottom of it and gave it to him, you know, and he swirls it around and looks. God damn, he said, nothing smells so good. wow, that's something. He takes it, oh, that's heaven. So I'm figuring, okay, give me the glass and get out of here. But he sort of holds it out like, can I have some more? Oh, shit, of course I did him. At the end of the evening, to cut this short, my roommate came back and he was under one shoulder, his shoulder was under one arm and my shoulder was on the other arm of our XO. And we drug him back to his stateroom. You know, on those ships, they have what they call knee knockers, where you have to step up over them, you know, as you're going down the passageway. And of course, he wasn't able to raise his feet, so we just drug him over the damn thing, just got him back and put him to bed. And then he became a constant fixture down there from there on, so. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Are there any technical questions or anything like that you guys want to know about? It's an incredibly complicated operation. We do everything on there that they do. They make bread, they cook, it's an amazing thing. And to do it on a World War II vintage aircraft carrier with hypersonic airplanes is just a remarkable challenge. We lost some people to accidents on board, and of course I lost a lot of my squadron mates also. I was very fortunate to have survived. So after I got out of the Navy, I went with United Airlines, and I retired from that in 2000. I flew in almost every country in the world, and every airplane that United had at the time. I retired off the 747-400. So that's it.
So Willie, when you volunteer at the Hornet, are you there all the time? How often do you?
I normally go on Sundays, but
Are they open every day or just on the
they're
weekends?
open every day.
Every day.
Uh-huh.
And so you're one of the docents?
And yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you can drive over. It's in Alameda, out on Alameda Point. They call it out there, and remember it's also the ship that recovered Apollo 13, the first guys to walk on the moon, and they have the isolation rig that they went into when they came back. The capsule is there that they were in. It's quite informative. Let's all give Willie. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So I want to say, Willie, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for your service. Here at Rotary, we're big on service above self, and your story is amazing. So we appreciate you joining us today. So ran a little long, but we're going to call it a wrap today. Thank you all for joining us, and look forward to seeing you next week.